Hello, everyone. Welcome back to
The Chiss Ascendancy.
episode 37. Today, we're talking about The Force Unleashed.
Force Unleashed.
What
You
is-
know you were all waiting for it.
Yeah.
Just begging, clamoring to hear about The
Here
Force
you go.
Unleashed.
You're welcome. We did a couple of requests for a few different things, so if you did give us a request online, then we are taking notes. We are writing stuff down. Definitely want to talk about a few of the fan favorite stuff coming up. While we're kind of on that subject, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and now there is a Chiss Ascendancy hangout page on Facebook, so you can come and hang out.
Basically like the closest person we have to Webkins. So, buy yourself a nice little Chiss
Wow, way to
Ascendancy plush.
degrade us.
Hey, Webkins
Hey,
was
we're Webkins.
ballin'.
You remember, what was it?
People out there that played Webkins, they know the truth.
There was a...
I was
What was
slaying
that?
some fools on checkers, boy.
What was- I remember when I was in 6th grade. Remember when RuneScape first became a thing, and we were in PE, and we told my friend Jared, we were like, "Hey, Jared, come out to the forest with us tonight." And my two friends, Kevin and Coleman, met Jared in the forest and slaughtered him and divided up his money. And the next day at PE, he was like, "Hey, jerks!" He was pissed off because they lured him into the forest on RuneScape, killed him, and taken all his money. And his runes, of course. Wouldn't be RuneScape without runes.
I was Sunflash 123. Come at me.
Oh, Sunflash the Mace. Good
Yeah.
call. What was the other penguin? There's a Penguin Club or Penguin Party.
Penguin
or
Club,
Is that
right?
what it was? Penguin something.
Adam?
He's not going to know. It's past his time.
My bad.
Okay.
Club Penguin.
Club Penguin. There you go.
There it is.
Yeah.
I knew I had it in there.
I have a
somewhere.
funny story about that, but it's not appropriate for mixed company. So, some crazy things happen at Club Penguin. So today we're talking about The Force Unleashed. Before we do, though, we just want to get through a little bit of news and some reviews. Right as we were in the middle of last week's episode, Hasbro was having their HasCon online, and so they, of course, announced a few other amazing things. The new
People
Boba
working that
Fett.
show where they has gone.
The new... What? So, the major reveal of the show was there's a wing of Hasbro's company called HasLab, Hasbro Laboratory, that basically does crowdfunding things. So the Jabba sail barge, so many people had to back the barge for it to happen. And so, again, they had another project that needed 6,000 backers to be started, and then 8,000 backer tier and a 10,000 backer tier. And that is the Mandalorian's Razor Crest. And so they're making it for the vintage collection scale. I think it's going to be maybe between 2 and 2.5 feet. And then, again, maybe 2 feet wide. It's going to be sick.
Where are you going to put it, man?
I don't know. I'm putting it somewhere, though. I'll tell you that.
Not hanging from the ceiling.
It was backed in 24 hours, and it's reached at least 8,000, and by now it may have reached that 10,000 person mark. So what they did was they revealed the ship, and they said, okay, now that we have 6,000 backers, if we get to 8,000, we'll include the escape pod that launches out of the top of the Razor Crest. And then once that was revealed, then they said, okay, well, if you get to the third tier, 10,000 backers, they'll include the child and the vintage collection scale on a card
That's pretty cool.
with the cradle that Quill makes. But you did my boy dirty. You included the work of his hands, but not Quill himself. We're hurting over here. We haven't had Quill in Lego form. We haven't had Quill in Black Series. We haven't had Quill in
Irate, both
the
of
vintage
us, not
collection.
just him.
We're both angry.
Not just him, definitely not.
He earned his freedom with the work of his hands, and you can't even make a figure for him.
Yep. Was it
Ashamed.
2 human
Don't hide
lifetimes?
Quill under a bushel any longer, Hasbro. You need to make us a toy. And then, as promised, one of the things that we did when we created the Facebook page is we want to create more conversation between us and listeners. And one of the things that really helps the podcast grow is reviews on whatever channel you're listening to it on. I haven't found a way that people can review stuff on Spotify, but you can leave us a review and based on a system out of 1 to 5 stars, and you can write a written review. So I guess a rating is the 5 stars, and then the review is written. But you can do that on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and when you do that, it helps the channel grow, because the more reviews, the more ratings that we have, the more likely it's going to get on people's suggested list. Very cool. February 7th, J-Rock. I think I've mentioned this one before, but we're going to do it again. First review, we're going to get shout out. It says, Star Wars fans will love this show. Great show, great people. It's funny because I don't know who some of these people are, so I'm like very touched. Probably her mom.
I know it's not Mom.
It's not Mom. She's not listening to this.
Mom's not faithful.
Okay, so September 25th, so last Friday, Hoodrack 16. We have suspicions of who that is, but we're not 100% sure. It says, the title is, I look forward to this every week. And it says, they give you your weekly Star Wars and hilarious jokes fix all in one podcast.
Thanks,
Great for Star Wars fans of any level. Love it.
Let's talk about that for a second. We've had a couple people be like, we don't know anything about Star Wars. We don't want to watch the podcast.
Yeah.
To which we say...
To which we say, that's the reason for the podcast.
That's the reason why.
If you don't know anything about Star Wars, you listen and you get educated every single week. That's the point.
And we have fun.
What if we went to school and it was like, all right, guys, welcome to college. We expect you to know everything about college. No, that's the reason you go to school, is to be educated. So you're listening to the podcast to gain. Guys, come on.
But you're here. You know that.
Also, this past Monday from a username... Monday, singular. From username...
Pluralizing words in the middle now.
Kakenstein. That's how, like
the
you know,
plural of cat is cast?
Yeah. Or in Spanish, you say the adjective last. Different languages. From username Kakenstein. If you're not a Star Wars fan, if you're not a fan of this podcast, I believe is the title. It's kind of cut off. Pretty blunt and honest. This is one of my favorite Star Wars podcasts. These guys are super knowledgeable, funny, and they know how to run this show. It's always a great time listening to them. Clapping emoji. In the Christian world, this is praise hands, but I think it's supposed to be a high five emoji. But praise hands will do. And then lastly, on Tuesday, some random guy by the name of Skeleton Astronaut left a review called Bringing Balance to Star Wars Podcasts. Combining intricate Star Wars knowledge with the best kind of dumb jokes, the Chiss Ascendancy podcast is a standout for people looking for two guys having way too much fun talking about space wizards. Trademark in parentheses. Thanks, guys. Skeleton Astronaut.
So which of us is dumb and which one's jokes? Age before beauty.
Ooh, okay. And so... that's the reviews for this week. So if you leave one and we don't, let's say you left it on Wednesday of this week, we record on Fridays, sometimes they show up a day or two late. So we'll read as we get them subsequently. So we've got 4 right now. Come on, guys, spice it up. Only a few hundred to go.
Not that spicy, though, because we got to read them.
We got to read them. Yeah, don't put any cursing or any, nothing sexual, please. So... I'm married, and he's got morals, all right? So nothing too crazy. So today we're talking about The Force Unleashed. It's a cool combination. Force Unleashed is a video game. It's a book. It's a way of life. We're going to talk about it today. And we're going to dabble maybe into The Force Unleashed 2. We'll see how much time we have. There's so many
There's
a
lot
cutoffs.
to cover just because...
How many options do you have?
Yeah, there's the different...
You can be a good guy or a bad guy on 12 different platforms.
Yeah, the varying story lines between platforms it's a little bit dicey, but we'll get through it. We're going to get through it.
And what does C-3PO with the lightsaber have to do with it? Find out. And we're back. Last episode on the Chiss Ascendancy. No, I'm being, on the previous episode of. Anyways, so you know what actually kind of sparked this for me a little bit was obviously friends of mine and fans of the podcast know that I'm a big Star Wars collector as well as fan. And so something that the Black Series has started to do, because they get all in calls now, is just kidding. You guys don't have a Java sail barge. But something that the Black Series has done that's actually really cool is what they call gaming greats. Characters from video games that really stood out, and they're making figures of those specific characters. They're going a little bit low here. They're starting to just produce every kind of trooper from any game ever, and I'm like, we know you're using the same molds, you cheapos. But for instance, that's where they made Darth Revan already, and he was very rare, and so it's a good opportunity for them to re-release updates of that, right? So they did Darkside Revan, and then from the game Star Wars, it's a mobile game. It's on my phone. Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. There's a light side Revan. So it's weird because in Knights of the Old Republic, when he's light side, he just doesn't have the mask. But in Galaxy of Heroes, they just basically give him Jedi colored robes with the mask still, which looks pretty cool. Yeah. So you have dark side and light side Revan.
It's a cool concept when I think about, I guess, in theory, there was the light side Revan that wore the mask when he went on his little mission. He was afraid to unwrap the mask because he wasn't sure how much of his dark self would come out when he put it on, but he wears it anyway. So I guess that exists.
Yeah.
But he's not technically a Jedi then.
Yeah. He's just doing his thing.
Yeah.
And so so you have him, dark and light. You have like a Stormtrooper commander from Force Unleashed. The white Stormtrooper, regular armor with the blue stripe coming down over one eye. Very cool. For instance, with the new game Jedi Fallen Order, they have the Purge Trooper, which is kind of the airborne look with the electric staff.
Or they will probably come out with the one where there's the, slightly, I think it's a commander, but it's just like the slightly more aggressive version of the Stormtrooper. They got the little shoulder thing.
A pauldron?
Yeah.
Okay. They also have released stuff like heavy infantry droid from Battlefront, which is kind of funny because they have the cannon for that. The heavy blaster that the heavy infantry droid can have is kind of specific to the sequels. So the cannon looks weird to me because it looks like a First Order Stormtrooper cannon, but whatever. And so anyways, long story short, they had that's why Darth Nihilus is coming back out again, or for the first time. That's where the new updated Jango Fett comes from Jango Fett Bounty Hunter. And so anyways, it's cool stuff like that. Well, they were starting to release like I said, Scout Trooper, Purge Trooper.
If we don't get Raxus Prime Star Killer.
Right, so that was the point, is someone was like, hey, you guys are playing yourselves. We all know that the greatest gaming great is Galen Merrick, a.k.a. Star Killer. And if you don't put him out, you guys are frauds. Like, somebody just went in on Hasbro on Instagram the other day.
That's super funny.
And so I've been kind of thinking about the Force Unleashed ever since then. And so, for those of you...
Also, if I can get a more high-quality version of Juno Eclipse, I won't be upset. You may or may not have noticed. I own 2 Star Wars figures. This is one of them.
Juno Eclipse.
Juno Eclipse.
There she is. British chick, blonde hair, flies the ship.
The Rogue Shadow.
Rogue Shadow. Wow. I could not remember that. Good job. That was a cool Lego set.
I had that Lego set. It was sick.
It was sick. And it came with a battle damaged Darth Vader. Very cool.
And the Galen Merrick. And the Juno.
So,
all the important things.
Basically, it's interesting because when you think of Star Wars, you think of lightsabers, you think of lightsaber fights, you think of, Force energy, Jedi versus Sith, all this other stuff. And as the sequels came out, it was like everybody was super mad about how powerful Rey was. Kind of like right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have seen Star Wars Episode 7, but it's called The Force Awakens. So if you crybabies out there don't like that The Force awakened in her, I don't know. What do you want? You know what happened? The last person wrote a Star Wars movie because they didn't like the other one? That's when The Last Jedi happened. That's when Rian Johnson was like, I'm going to write my own. And so it's controversial. So I like plenty of parts about The Last Jedi. What I'm saying is you got to trust. They should have given JJ all 3, but that's just my opinion. So people were complaining about how powerful Rey was. And the whole time I'm thinking, you guys haven't played The Force Unleashed, have you? Because there's the main character, Starkiller. His birth name is Galen Merrick.
He was powerful as a young guy, but to be fair, he was apprenticed to Darth Vader for his entire sentient life. For
sure. I'm just saying the abilities that we see from Rey are nowhere near the abilities that we see from Starkiller, in my opinion.
Well,
he's just the most, and I know that Palpatine is supposed to be the most powerful character, but I don't see anyone across the board, video games included, comics, everything. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do stuff like what Galen Merrick did. You had Nihilus, whose desire for hunger consumed worlds, but you don't really get to see too much of it. But you're playing as Galen Merrick. You don't get to play as Nihilus as much. And so it's an interesting character. So I guess we'll just kind of talk about the game and the storyline and the different versions of stuff. So it's really interesting because depending on if you're playing Xbox, PlayStation, PSP, PS3 versus PS4, PS2 versus PS3, and then Nintendo Wii, they all have different storylines.
Well, yeah, so
and added missions.
The PS3 and the Xbox 360, their storylines are consistent.
They're the same, and those are the biggest two platforms.
Then there's the PS2, Wii, and PSP versions are consistent, is my understanding.
Right.
Because I've only played Xbox and PSP.
Right.
I knew there's a difference between those two. I wasn't sure what their lineup was.
Well, as we were
there's
preparing,
like 5 different missions.
Yeah. Well, as we're preparing for,
PSP.
as we're even preparing for the episode, we were reading some storylines from the PSP, and I was like, I played the PSP version. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
And so basically, no matter how you play the game, where you start is on Kashyyyk.
As Darth Vader. Arguably one of the funnest missions.
One of the funnest missions because you start off OP.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because
you're just freaking throwing Wookiees like
Dude.
Uncle Rico says he can throw a football, baby.
From the hip.
Clear over them mountains.
Clear over the mountains. I could throw a football a quarter mile.
I threw a Wookiee a quarter mile.
Yeah. Which you probably did in reality. I remember growing up listening to Napoleon Dynamite and being like, yeah, a quarter mile. And then as I'm an adult, I'm like, 400 meters? That's four football fields. I can throw a quarter mile. That's so funny. It's so ridiculous. Oh, Jess. Anyways, so you start off on Kashyyyk, and you're basically Jedi hunting. And it's so funny. I love how Darth Vader is so over the top. Like, everything he does. Like, he's looking for a Jedi. He's looking for a singular Jedi, right? He's, like, hunting him down, checking him off the list. And he's looking for a character named, what's Galen's dad's first name? I want to say Talon, but that's wrong. Starts with a T, though.
No, it's not Galen. Hold on.
Galen is Starkiller's name.
Starkiller.
Something...
Kinto.
I was way off. Kinto Merrick. And he's looking for him, and he knows that he's around. He feels the Force or whatever. And as he's searching for him, again, it's just so funny that... I know the Empire has a ton of resources, but think about Empire Strikes Back, where it's like... Yeah, we're going to take this whole dadgum fleet into the asteroid field because I want that ship, and I don't give two craps what you think about it. Like, TIE fighter pilots
I think my
died.
favorite part about that is that he needed to take a phone call, and he's like, all right, the rest of you keep it up. I got to take this phone call. I got to jet out of this
Pull us out of the asteroid field. I'll answer the Emperor. It was so funny because he was like, he was the guy was saying, it's dangerous to go into an asteroid field after the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
And Vader goes, that does not concern me, Admiral. He's like, I don't give a crap. I want this toy. I want this ship. I always wonder why he wanted the Millennium Falcon so bad. Because it was fast?
I think because he just didn't like the idea that something could get away from him. You know what I mean?
Also, they're the ones that cheap shot at him at the end of A New Hope. What? Do we have that clip?
Somewhere.
Of course we
I've got that one for sure.
Yeah. We need to use our clips more.
It's hard to keep track of everything. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm only human, not like Proxy. Bet you wish you had Proxy out here.
So, in The New Hope, you got Vader, and he's seconds away from killing Luke Skywalker before he can destroy the first Death Star, and he goes, what?
Hold on.
Oh.
Will you just give me a minute?
And that's when
right.
Han Solo comes out of nowhere.
I think I've picked the right one.
Vader looks over his shoulder, and he goes,
What?
There you go.
Nailed it.
And Han Solo, and it basically shoots Vader off into oblivion. And that's when Luke Skywalker Han Solo goes, Yahoo! My voice is very tired. Or I would do it better.
Oh, hold on. It's funny because they're right next to each other, and I just moved away. All right. So Darth Vader goes, what?
And then Han Solo goes, Yahoo! There you go.
Nailed it.
Now you've basically seen Star Wars. You're welcome. Stuck at home from the pandemic? Not anymore. You've been to Star Wars. There's actually a very cool comic from the concept of when, Vader goes spinning out, and for forever, that nobody ever thought about. I never thought about, where the crap does he go? What happens to him? And so
Haven't you seen Robot Chicken?
Well, yes, but
he calls Palpatine.
What are you gonna do?
Who's they? What's an aluminum falcon?
Oh, original big guy. Just build another one? Who's going to pay for it, huh? You got an ATM on that torso light bright? Robot Chicken is so trash. Anyways.
I don't think I've ever watched an entire episode. I just know that clip intimately.
I know the clip where the Emperor's coming down the escalator in the Death Star. Have you seen that one?
I don't know. I don't think so. It doesn't sound familiar. I'll tell you what I do remember is coming down the escalator, or I guess it's an elevator, all the time in The Force Unleashed. There's a lot of elevators in The Force Unleashed. What we came to talk about.
Really quick. There's the comic book where after Vader is spinning out, woo, 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 and the comic is basically there's this random picture Lothal where it's just like fields and fields and fields for amber waves of grain just in every direction, and there's an Imperial outpost, right? Like a typical, like smaller than the house that we're in right now, and there's nothing. And so there's a recruit that's just been sent there, and that's his post.
Poor guy.
And he's, hands to the side, top button buttoned, not a hair out of place, got his cap on frontwards, and the other guys are like in their tank tops, and they got like their hats on backwards, and they're like, it looks like they're drinking beers, and they're like, loosen up, nothing ever happens out here. And the whole story, he's like, no, we gotta do the right thing. And then Darth Vader crash lands on this planet, right? And the whole story is like, nope, I gotta mop, I gotta do this. And then at the last second, he's like, yeah, nothing happens out here, might as well just loosen up. And him and his two friends are like, cracking open a cold one, and there's a shadow, and they turn around, and Vader's there, and I think he ends up killing all of them. Should have. Galatians says, do not grow weary in well-doing, because there's a harvest if you don't give up. And so this guy didn't dot his I's and cross his T's anymore, and his harvest was murder, turns out.
The Master expects too much.
Too much. So the Force Unleashed,
right?
So all that to say, it's funny because
Vader's was relevant, I think.
Yeah, it brings it around. Vader's looking for a Jedi, and he's gonna bring this whole army with him for this one guy. Right. Couldn't he just go? You know what I mean? Couldn't he just go do the thing?
Is that you pretty much do all the work.
Right.
You got these Wookiees. First of all, I don't care about fighting like humans, but the Wookiees,
pretty fun.
Me, that's kind of more
sport.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because obviously hand-to-hand combat, a Wookiee is massive.
Right.
But it is insignificant next to the power of the Force. And so these Wookiees, 8 feet tall, and they're like, and they're running at you, and you're like, snap, snap, push, crush, lightsaber in half. Very cool stuff. And so the whole time, the goal is eventually... It's cool because it's a very...
game and you throw a Wookiee, and then just somewhere from a planet far away you hear... That's gotta hurt!
Okay, bring up the sound clip. Save it where you've been. So that's awesome. So it's cool because it's a fun thing because Vader's already OP, and it's a great mission. I thought this was a very smart idea. It's a great mission to learn how to play the Force Unleashed because you're not as vulnerable because you're playing as Vader, who's already super strong.
Yeah, you're at max power. Two things: you can't double jump,
right,
and you can't use Force Lightning. But as far as the mechanics of Force Grab, Force Throw, I think you have a lightsaber throw. I think Force Choke is something that he has that's unique. Since he doesn't use Force Lightning, that's kind of his thing.
Right.
But yeah, it's a super cool way to walk you into the game.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you're basically invulnerable. It's one of the easiest and I think most inviting opening missions in like any game that I played.
Yeah, I thought it was a very, very clever way of doing that.
Yeah. Very opposite of Assassin's Creed when they're like, hey, welcome to the game. Walk across this ledge 27 times until you can get it right.
Right.
And I'm like, clamber. And they're like, jump backwards? Back to the drawing board. I'm freaking trying out. Dude, I was raging the first time I played an Assassin's Creed intro mission.
I bet. Dude, you're up there on like a dadgum bird's feather of a ledge.
Like, literally, it's just like open, it's like white space. And then Adam, am I not right? It's just like open white space, and then there's
Because you're in a computer.
and there's just a ledge, and it appears as you're walking on it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that sounds
dude.
like it blows.
It's frustrating. I mean, it's trial by fire. Anyway, all that to say, I enjoyed the intermission for Force Unleashed.
So the concept is you're finding Kinto Merrick, and you find him chopped and screwed. You get him, no problem. And then as you're going to kill him, your typical Vader, over-the-top, full, racquetball behind your hand swing.
Yeah.
And as you're going to, with your follow-through, the lightsaber's pulled from your hand.
Yep.
And you're like, what? Yes, good job. And then, so when he does that, you look behind you, and there's this 3 or 4 year old kid just holding like the lightsaber is so big in his hand that he's like this. He's like holding it like you would hold a giant telescope, and he's like,
and Galen's a little guy, and he hasn't taken statistics yet, and so Vader looks at him, and then he goes,
Never tell me the odds.
we should call this the sound bit episode.
I've been holding back for 37 weeks.
It's funny because every other episode Adam's like with us, and he's sitting here, and he just, every little bit there's 3 seconds where it's just dead silence, and then we die laughing. He has no clue what sound clip you're playing. You realize, hang on, there's something to this. This kid just pulled the lightsaber, and you gotta remember, you just destroyed and grilled cheese like 35 Wookiees. And so, who is this kid? And all these Imperials just flood into the room.
Yeah.
And so there's probably 20 stormtroopers, 2 leaders.
Vader takes his lightsaber back, and he's back in control again, and he's thinking,
All too easy.
All too easy. This is so fun. So he basically has his lightsaber, and he protects the child and kills all the stormtroopers and everything there.
That's the coolest part, is that he's suddenly now found something else he's interested in. And extra Vader kills everybody because he wants 0 witnesses.
Yep. And it's interesting because you have to remember, in the timeline of things, this is right episode 3, right? Because Galen has to grow up to be the character you play with, who's probably 20-something? No. Yeah, let's say he's 23.
I want to say mid-20s.
Man, how does that work? A New Hope is 19 years after the Revenge of the Sith. So if this kid's 4, maybe it's 19 years later. It's right before A New Hope that The Force Unleashed takes place.
Yeah.
So he's 23?
Well, it would have been so quick after Nightfall that...
Yeah, let's just say that it's
because he's
the
still
day
hunting
after...
down Rogue Jedi. And that Starkiller's whole thing is hunting down Rogue Jedi.
Right.
So Shaak Ti's still around. Shaak Ti makes an appearance.
Oh, spoiler alert. I'm just kidding.
But the game's been out for almost 20 years. Sorry.
It came out in 2008?
Adam?
I think 2007.
So,
Look that up.
Look that up, Jamie. 2000. I want to say. Here's how I remember, because it was my 9th grade class.
In 1492.
And my friend Nolan was talking about The Force Unleashed coming out, and he had a Gamer Insider magazine.
Oh my god.
And it was funny because 2008.
In his right hand was a Gamer Insider magazine, and his left hand was a new Webkinz doll, so he could continue his membership.
And it was funny because there's a picture of Vader standing on a ledge of Kashyyyk, looking over the Wookiees all being enslaved, and there's a smoke billowing, and it looks like there's smoke coming from his groin, and it's like Vader with a smoking crotch. And that was the caption of the whole picture inside Gamer magazine. Which I don't know why, but when stuff like that happens, I take Star Wars way too seriously, and I'm like, you don't make that joke about Darth Vader.
Yeah.
I was like...
And then they're looking, and they're making a joke about Vader's crotch, and then behind him they just hear... Danger.
Hey, you know what's a cool tidbit? Is that the guy that does Chad Vader was the voice of Darth Vader in The Force Unleashed.
That is really cool. Talk about turning...
Your baby is ugly.
Talking your joy and passion into real substance.
I watched Chad Vader yesterday, and it sucks.
Is it still funny? Oh, never mind.
It's this much funny. It's this much nostalgia. But it's like, he throws a lemon at a guy, and he's like, is that all you got? And you hear Chad Vader go, it's all I need. And he just throws like 50 lemons at this guy, and he's like, He's just like, no, and you can tell someone's like lobbing these limits behind the camera. So it's like barely hitting the guy, and he's like, no, and Vader's like, ha ha ha, throwing these limits.
Dude, that
with
sounds
the Force.
funny.
It is. It's corny. It's corny funny,
them.
but it has a soft spot in our hearts.
It did it for me when I was 11, so I'm just gonna give it my loyalty for the rest of my life.
Yeah, chances are it'll still be there. It's been there more than our parents. I'm just kidding. So
you heard it here first.
Shut up.
Chad Vader, more apparent in our lives than Mom.
Wow.
More apparent in the podcast, that's for sure. Except for whatever episode I let loose on. Good luck finding that.
So that's the first mission, and then boom, fast forward 20 years or so, less than 20 years, but right at 20 years later, and Galen Erso is grown up. Fun fact, the actor for the voice and motion capture for Galen Merrick is Sam Witwer.
Yeah.
Who is now our resident Darth Maul for the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And so very, very cool. That was his intro into Star Wars.
He's also a lot older than he looks.
Yeah, he's like...
He literally hasn't aged.
At all.
Maybe ever.
Yeah. Yeah, you can... Yeah, his chin is so strong. His jawline is so strong still. And he still makes this face.
Young, I wanna be
He kind of looks more and more like Darth Maul the older he gets. Like his cheekbones are more pronounced. He's got to have a crazy workout regimen.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So the next...
Just to be able to scream as much as he does, he's got to be fit.
Dude, I saw the behind-the-scenes footage of when he's recording for Twin Sons.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing held back.
And he's like... I'm not going to scream as loud as he does because I don't want to make your ears bleed. But it was full send, I'll say that.
Oh, yeah, he's committed.
So you fast forward 18 or 19 years, and you are above, depending on what system you're playing on. So this is kind of crazy. So Xbox and PS3, you're above Bespin, correct? Or Nar Shaddaa?
Nar Shaddaa? I don't even remember.
If I could have a recording of that, every time I got a text, Nar Shaddaa. What?
So search for Coda in the main. So this is going to be PS3, Xbox.
Yes.
Nar Shaddaa.
There you go. And I believe that whatever the main storyline is...
I think that is
consistent.
I think that's consistent.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
The difference in Coda's location is that he's in Bespin in the Xbox version. I think he's still in Nar Shaddaa in the PSP version.
I'm so confused. Whatever the main storyline is, that's what you read because there is a Force Unleashed novelization.
Yeah, so here it is. These versions are slightly different, discussing the PSP versions, as they include some additional levels in the Jedi Temple and on Cloud City. The biggest difference is the location of Ram Coda, who is found on Nar Shaddaa instead of Bespin.
So he's found on Nar Shaddaa for PSP?
He's found in Bespin.
For PSP?
Yeah, because you get that cool Corellian outfit, and you fight Boba Fett. You remember that? Semi. So you fight Ram Coda. That's when he's kind of trying to be with Ram Coda.
Yes. I remember finding him on Bespin, but that's extra for the PSP.
I believe so.
So when you first fight him at the very beginning of the game, that's on Nar Shaddaa no matter what.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Because it's at the ship.
The TIE Fighter, whatever you want to call it, factory above Nar Shaddaa. Because when Ram Coda is defeated, you shove him through a floor and he falls to what you believe is his death. And it's interesting because as Starkiller and Ram Coda are fighting, Starkiller defeats him and he's holding his lightsaber like right above his eyes. And Ram Coda has a Force vision and he says, I don't see... Vader's not your future, boy. I sense only, and he's pushing up against him, right? He's holding back, and when he has this vision, he says, "I sense only," and he goes, "Me?"
Okay.
And when he does that, he goes kind of weak because he's confused, and that's when Galen is able to blind him. Or I think he's already blinded, but that's when he's able to defeat him and push him through the floor of the collapsing TIE Fighter facility.
All right. So,
is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And then tracking Coda when he's going to the light side, basically. Remembering that Coda said he'd be in his future, Galen tracks him from Nar Shaddaa to Ziost, eventually finding him blind, doubtful of the Empire's fall, and drunk in the Vapor Room on Cloud City.
Yeah, that's when you go to find him again. Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's gosh dang it, I can't remember anything anymore. I used to be so sure. Okay, yeah, so I guess in the PSP version, Nar Shaddaa when he finds him again.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So then once you're done defeating him, you take his saber to Vader. And this is where you can realize that they don't have... it's definitely not a loving relationship, obviously, because Vader's got he's got his own issues he's dealing with. And you can tell that there's already guards up between the two of them because he tells Vader he defeated Rom Koda, but he doesn't tell the whole truth because he didn't kill him. He was able to take his lightsaber and he shoved him out of that collapsing facility.
I think he assumes he's dead.
I think so,
it's a pretty safe assumption in most cases.
But I specifically remember in the book or in the cutscene, whatever, he's like, so you killed him? And Starkiller is like, well, here's his lightsaber. It's kind of like on purpose he's telling the truth, but he's not telling the whole truth. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? He doesn't say, well, he fell 30,000 feet. What do you want from me? He says, here's his lightsaber. And Vader goes, all right, well, very good. And then you're sent on your next mission to our favorite place, Raxus Prime.
Yeah, this mission is
a pain in the butt.
It's a massive pain, but bright side, you get to kill a bunch of Rhodians, so take it as it comes. You just kill them all. You also get what I think is
the coolest skin,
like top 3 coolest skins that you get. Because there's the extra DLC. I had the Ultimate Sith Edition on Xbox, right. So you get some cool skins that way.
I would say this is the coolest.
I think my all-time favorite is the Jedi robes, the ceremonial Jedi robes.
I think that this is the coolest natural skin that you get without the add-ons
through
that
missions.
You see what I'm saying?
The Corellian outfit's pretty cool.
And they made a cool figure.
Yeah, so you get the heavy gear, so he's all wrapped up.
So Raxus Prime is basically like modern day India with all the pollution and whatnot. It's just like the sky is just red for as far as you can see from all the pollution.
Smog. And this is where all droids come to die. So it's like a giant planet junkyard.
I cannot remember. Yeah, whenever it's very similar to if you're a fan of the Clone Wars and you haven't played The Force Unleashed, the planet that Savage Opress finds Maul on.
I keep thinking of it as Raxus Prime, even though I know that's
I know it's not the same place, but it's basically the same spot. It's like looking at Jakku and Tatooine and being like, yep, lots of sand. Yeah. It's just very, very, very similar. Heaps of trash everywhere. It probably smells like death.
Yeah.
But you're going there to kill a Jedi named Kazdan Paratus.
Yeah.
And Kazdan Paratus is...
If you watch the Clone Wars, there's that story arc where C-3PO and R2 are with Commander Wolf's contingent. And they're on that planet. And I can't remember the name of that species, but they got the long head and they don't speak basic.
Is that the guy that's like from the Force or from the Phantom Menace?
I can't remember if that's the same or different species because it's cartoon versus not. But
not the Raru guy, not that guy.
Not Raru. But yeah. So anyway, that's the kind of species that Kazdan Paratus is. Kazdan speaks basic.
Yeah, he does.
And he's an absolute turd because he uses the Force to animate basically the entire planet, and you're fighting giant junk monsters the whole time. They'll just pop out of the ground.
The species is called Alena.
Alena.
Aleena.
So like Aliena?
I guess, I don't know.
Aliena species.
And what's crazy is, it's interesting because all the Jedi that you come to hunt down, minus one that I can think of, are very, very jaded and very... I don't know. It's interesting. Luke Skywalker does so much for the Jedi by choosing love and choosing sacrifice over preservation and selfishness and anger. Because even Rom Koda, the very first Jedi that you fight, which Rom Koda, let's face it, Rom Koda is the better version of Kanan Jarrus before Kanan Jarrus was a thing. Right? Think about that. When you watch Star Wars Rebels, you have Kanan. He's a dejected survivor of Order 66. He's a part of a rebellion of sorts.
They're both blind.
They both get blinded, and then they teach the next generation of Force users. Yeah. But Rom Koda is next level.
I think he's cooler.
Well, he's definitely stronger in the Force. It's not even close. Because when they're fighting, they're in that main space before he gets defeated, and he knows that he's no match for Starkiller, and he basically does the, well, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me sort of thing, and he reaches out and like he just starts collapsing the center, and that's why it's falling.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
And so you're going to fight Kazdan Paratus, and he's this tiny, tiny, tiny little guy. He's like this tall.
Yeah.
He's like, same size as Yoda. But he's somehow harnessed like these crazy robotic legs around him, and some of his hands that he uses have lightsabers, and it's just all this crazy crap. And
it's mostly just you avoiding crap he's throwing at you the whole
Yeah, hand to hand, no problem, you win. But he uses the Force to animate these objects around him, and so you end up having to defeat him. You have that cool, heavy, it's just a crazy. It's like a giant shawl over you from your shoulders up to over your nose.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't you too, though?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm sure it smells like death, and you can probably get cancer just from breathing there. And so after that, you defeat him. You take his saber to Vader, and you're gaining steam. You're killing these Jedi. Because against Rom Koda is your first real mission by yourself.
Right.
And so you're starting to feel a little qualified. And the goal is always, you need to be stronger. And you're basically doing his work for Vader. But as you get stronger facing these Jedi, you're making yourself more capable for the overthrow of Palpatine.
Right.
And then the next mission, I want to say, is to Felucia?
Yeah, you go to Felucia, and you fight Shaak Ti. That mission's pretty cool, just because it's...
Oh, and you have the Felucian warriors with their Rancors.
They got the Rancors, and then they also have, like, different... They're kind of trained in the Force, and they've got shamans, so you kind of have to be strategic.
Yeah, it's weird. It's
And then they integrate the unique plant life. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's interesting because the Force... Star Wars is so intertwined within itself, but the Felucians remind me a lot, in a way, of the Night Sisters. Where
Yeah, kind of.
they don't speak basic, but they have their own Force awareness.
Night Sisters speak basic.
Oh, I'm saying the Felucians don't.
Okay.
They're like, but they have their own understanding of the Force. Like you said, they have magic and kind of some sorcery, and it's not as strong as the Night Sisters, but it's cool because it's a native species.
Yeah.
And the Night Sisters kind of use the plant life and plant it around them, and they have spells, and it's very similar. I would dare say the Felucians are cooler because they ride Rancors, which is freaking dope.
It's pretty sick.
It's cool because when this game was coming out, 2008, the Legacy collection of Star Wars figures was kind of at its peak. And that's really maybe the best collection ever because you got so many. There wasn't a 6-inch version of Stings, but all the funding was going to the 3 3/4-inch figures. So you got minimum that I can think off the top of my head. You have 5 or 6 different versions of Starkiller. You had 2 different versions of Juno Eclipse. You had all these. You had Shadow Stormtroopers that were like, if you held them up to the light, they were kind of like invisible. They put out a cool super pack that was from Toys R Us only that had the giant Rancor that had the war paint, the Felucian war paint on it, and he came with a rider. And so there's just all this really cool stuff. That's when the Battle Damage Darth Vader came out for the 30th anniversary of Star Wars. And his helmet was
Authentic battle damage.
Authentic battle damage. Really cool stuff. And so and then in the Legacy collection, you got that Shaak Ti, which is like uber expensive now in the package. And so the idea, the thing that starts to kind of change his mind a little bit is as you face Shaak Ti before she dies, she says, "The Sith always betray one another. You'll never be happy. The dark side will never."
Also, what's cool about that fight is there's a Sarlacc.
Yeah, there's a Sarlacc right behind you. So as you're fighting her, you're also making sure you're not getting dragged in by the Sarlacc. And so she's standing at the edge of the Sarlacc, and she says, "You can't win. The dark side will overtake you, and the Sith always betray one another." Basically, you'll never have that family you're looking for. You'll never have that belonging you're looking for. And then she does the old Olympic high dive into the Sarlacc pit. Starkiller doesn't even kill her. She just jumps into the pit. And at this point is when you're really starting to have doubts as a character about what you're doing for Darth Vader. Is it worth it? Is it even your plan, or are you just doing what he says? Do you have your own thoughts? Very much the gunslinger. from Bill Gunner. And so it's a very cool story. And then throughout the story, you're in the Rogue Shadow, your ship, and you're falling in love with your pilot, Juno Eclipse, which is like your bajillionth pilot. Nice. But this one happens to be an attractive chick. And so you're falling in love with her. And it's interesting because one of the cool elements of the game is as you go, your droid proxy will help you simulate different fight styles. And so he basically has all the Imperial records of all these different characters, like Darth Maul or Obi-Wan or I'm trying to think of other ones. He can be almost anyone, like Boba Fett. He could be anybody. And so you, it's cool because as you're going throughout, it'll be like he tries to ambush you and it makes you better. Mm-hmm. And so even as you're going throughout, you're like, I'm not really in the mood, Proxy. And he's like, Master, what's wrong? And so it's like you're starting to really have doubts about what's going on. And so what happens next after that? After you're on Felucia?
You go back to Vader, and the Emperor's there unbidden. Mm-hmm. The Emperor's kind of found out, and then Vader, kind of fake for real, kills Starkiller, throws him out the window, and then revives him.
Dude, I remember when we were first watching and playing the game, you're not that super far into the game. And you're standing there, the door opens, the Emperor walks in, and you're like, oh, dadgummit, we weren't ready for this.
Yeah.
And he stabs you through the back. And you do this whole move that Starkiller does 3 or 4 times throughout the 2 games. The old goldfish open mouth look, because you're being stabbed through the spine. And then he really sells it. He smashes you around the room for about 35 seconds, and he throws you out of the window. And you're like, okay, I guess that's the end of the game. That was whack. And then it turns out that he has somehow found you in the vacuum of space.
Yeah, Vader sent out like a health droid like ASAP.
Right.
Or maybe even had one there prepared just so he could continue on. It's Vader.
Yeah.
And so after you get squooed by Darth Vader, he sends you off on a mission, and
you're nursed back to health, and his idea is, here's what we're going to do. We're going to say you survived. You start up the rebellion.
Yeah.
To get the not that he should know it's you, but you start a rebellion against the Empire to get the Emperor's attention, and while he's distracted, we will destroy him. Which is so interesting because in Return of the Jedi, it's because Palpatine is distracted by his attacking Luke that Vader's able to kill him. So the plan wasn't necessarily that bad. Yes, you distract the Emperor, and then that's how you defeat him. Mm-hmm. You couldn't best him one-on-one. George Lucas says that Vader, after he was in the suit, was only 80% of the man Palpatine was.
Yeah.
So he was never going to defeat Palpatine straight up.
You go and you track down Ramkota.
Yep. And this is where you fight that super dope. What's the Royal Guard that has the black armor on? I can't remember what the specific title for them is, but that's when you really start fighting those guys.
Yeah, I just think of them as the Imperial Guard. I don't think they have any Shadow Guard, maybe?
Shadow Guard? I'm looking it up. Yeah, I think it's Shadow Guard. It's really cool because the regular Imperial Guards have the solid red armor with the black visor.
Yeah, and these are force trained a little bit. Shadow Guard?
Shadow Guard? Yeah. So you start fighting them, and one of the really cool things, especially as a fan of troopers, clones and stormtroopers, and as a collector of figures, is you got all these variations of stormtroopers. Mm-hmm. So that's where you have the regular stormtrooper, you have the stormtrooper commander, you have the Evo trooper, which is like he's basically like someone that's on Raxus Prime, where it's very polluted and toxic gases, like on Felucia. You have the Evo Trooper has like special tubing and stuff to help filter out gases and whatnot. And then you have the Jet. Is it Jet Trooper?
There's the Jet Troopers, and then there are the snipers.
Yeah.
On top of that,
and it's really cool because those troopers
are not counting the robotic troopers.
Right, and then you have kind of Dark Trooper kind of things. Mm-hmm. They're not called Dark Troopers, but they're like these big mech, and they just do this to you.
I think they're Purge Troopers. Is what they're called.
Dang. It's like, again, everything is so intertwined with the Force.
And then you get cool variants on the ATST.
Yeah, with the giant guns on the side and stuff like that.
Either custom or ones that are equipped with repulsor arms.
So you round up all these guys, Garm Bel Iblis and Bail Organa, Leia Organa, Rom
There's a lot
Coda.
leading up to that. So you get Coda, and then you go back to Kashyyyk. that's where you kind of learn who you are. He encounters his father here. This is kind of like your first real exploration of the light side, because Kashyk's more of a light side nexus. You have some Force visions. You rescue Leia here. You fight a guy who's, one of the more Imperial higher-ups. You go into this cool trophy room. You set the Wookiees free. A lot of cool stuff happens on that mission.
And it's interesting because it's typical, you're doing the bad guy thing, but as you do the bad guy thing, pretending to be a good guy, you turn into a good guy. It's the classic Dances with Wolves, Blue People Avatar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's the John Smith story of, I actually care about Pocahontas. That sort of thing. And so you're falling in love with Juno, and she's kind of becoming a champion of the cause and stuff like that. Proxy's doing his thing for the rebellion. And then as they're really starting to get their crap together, they're at this secret meeting.
No, there's 2 more things before that.
Oh my god.
So there's the mission to the Jedi Temple.
Right. And this is exclusive?
No, this one's in Xbox.
Okay.
And you fight your dark version.
Oh, the Stalker.
Yeah, you fight like the ultimate dark side version. You also fight, different Imperial troops, but most of it's focused on the Force.
This game is interesting because there's so much stuff that happens that's not super explained that well.
Yeah.
Like, how does this dark version of yourself exist? Does it say? I can't recall.
It's because he's going through areas that are like for the Jedi trials. So he's basically having to confront his dark side.
Well, I guess it is true. In the Clone Wars, Yoda talks to the dark version of himself.
Mm-hmm. But that was, same, but
similar.
Yeah. And then you return to Felucia.
That's when you meet Maris Brood.
Yeah, you fight Maris Brood, who's an absolute turd.
She has a really crazy lightsaber. It's like, here's the handle that the blade's coming out of, and then it's like, she has a side handle.
Yeah.
So, whatever this thing is from Hellboy.
Or, Traitor.
Yeah. It's kind of like Traitor from...
TR-8R.
Yeah, from
Force
Awakens, where he's like... the riot baton, but imagine it's a lightsaber coming out of the end.
And so something's changed in the Felucia mission. Instead of being the bad guy going against the light side, the dark side... Felucia is like kind of a dark side planet, so now the dark side's taken over, and now you're fighting all the things that have been corrupted by the dark side, and now you're the light side influence.
Which is crazy, because then you realize how freaking strong Shaak Ti was, keeping all the dark side kind of at bay.
And then it's also now Imperial occupied. And so instead of fighting near the Sarlacc, you go through the Sarlacc, which sucks butts. That's a big challenge. And then after that mission's done, I think you've done something for Bail Organa in this particular mission.
Yeah.
And then you go back to Raxus, where's the Star Destroyer factory's at, and then you pull that thing out of the sky.
Oh, how could I forget to pull it out of the sky?
Yeah.
Dude, there's this mission as you're going, and you're fighting.
You fight a lot more
to pull,
like advanced troopers in this one.
And you need to pull a dadgum Star Destroyer out of the sky.
And in the meanwhile, you get to fight off TIE fighters that keep shooting at you.
Yeah, so you're pulling, and every once in a while there's a wave of... It's really predictable because it's just like... Ooh, and they're coming in a circle towards you.
No less frustrating for the predictability, though.
For sure. And so you're stopping and you're like, okay, kill you. And by this time, the dadgum Star Destroyer is nearly in atmosphere again. And Ram Koda keeps screaming in your ear, pull that thing out of the sky. It really reminds me of when Kylo says, blow that piece of junk out of the sky.
Yeah, I thought about that too.
It's very similar. And so as you're doing that's the thing with me, is like whenever they talk about, Rey being too powerful, I'm like, there was this one time where a guy named Starkiller pulled a freaking Star Destroyer out of the sky, and it was so big that when it finally hits the ground, every single time I see the cutscene, every single time when I'm watching it, I'm like, wow, it's really close. Oh, wow, it's getting so much closer. Oh, here it comes. And it just keeps going because it's so big, you never realize how close it is to you.
And then eventually you're able to, pull it.
Blow that piece of junk out of the sky!
You pull it out of the sky. And then this challenge becomes stopping it.
Now you got to push it back.
Yeah, now you got to stop it. But anyway, it's... big Force challenge. One of the most powerful displays of Force power we probably ever see.
Yeah.
Maybe top ever.
Talk about the amount of poop in your pants. just from the stress.
Yeah.
You know?
So,
You ever seen those weightlifting videos where it's like a strongman competition and the guy's holding up like 1,100 pounds and he's just like bleeding from his nose and he's like, yeah, and just bleeding?
have you seen the ones where like your bicep snaps and you can see the muscle actually?
Dude, that happened. That's what happened when Kevin Durant tore his Achilles. Remember he placed it and he just saw it go, and all the terrible fans in Toronto were like, woo, freaking cheering for his torn Achilles. Hey, you want to hear something crazy? I was in a fantasy basketball league, and then right after Kevin Durant left to go to Golden State, of course, everyone was salty, and we jokingly named the basketball league Kevin Durant's torn Achilles. And 2 years later, we were prophets. So that was, I felt kind of bad.
And then finally, we get to the Corellian Treaty.
Right.
This is where you've got Mon Mothma, Bella Bliss, Bail Organa, Leia Organa.
Everybody's there.
All the big wigs are there, and Darth Vader barges in on the meeting unannounced, and
this is not part of the plan.
Yeah, kidnaps all the rebellion leaders, and Starkiller goes, "You promised you would stay away," and then Darth Vader says one of his most iconic lines. I lied.
I lied. Just as I have from the very beginning.
Straight into the point, I lied.
Dude. And he does his little finger.
Yeah.
I lied. And so basically, you're legitimately defeated.
Yeah.
Vader. I think Vader realizes he can't overthrow the Emperor. And so he's just going to get in his good graces. So he rounds up the leaders of the rebellion. I've often wondered about this. I can't remember if Leia just gets away.
No, I think Leia was also captured.
Because
or maybe
to me,
Leia... Oh, you know what it was? She
wasn't there.
She was literally there by proxy.
Yeah, that's so funny. That is kind of cool that the droid's name is Proxy and he's like, a shadow boxer of somebody else.
So
whenever stuff starts going to heck, he ends the transmission. Because basically, imagine, like whenever the Emperor does Order 66 and Commander Cody's holding that little miniature TV in his hand, imagine that, but basically the whole droid's body projects a bubble image around him.
Yeah, he's a combat simulation droid.
Dude, I would use that if I didn't want to wear a mask. You know? You have to go and you're like, oh crap, I don't have a mask. I'm just pumping gas or whatever, you know? You just proxy, got a mask on. What's a bit crazy?
Yep. And so, anyway, one thing that's interesting, and I'm like, how would Proxy have known to do this? Is he acts like he's Obi-Wan to distract Darth Vader to save Starkiller's life in this moment.
Oh, how would he know that?
But yeah, in the moment I was like, oh, that's cool, but now as an adult and thinking about the intricacies of the Star Wars story, I'm like...
Yeah, he would have no reason to know that was Anakin.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the most accomplished duelist he has on thing.
I don't know.
Because, like, okay, we know that Obi-Wan defeated Maul. Yeah. I'm trying to think of all the characters that he can play.
Well, he became Maul on the Raxus mission. He ambushes you while you're in Raxus.
Yeah.
The second time as Darth Maul.
So is Obi-Wan the greatest duelist that he can...
I feel like they just didn't think it through.
Yeah. It's definitely, when you're watching it as a kid, you're like, oh, that'll get him.
Yeah.
But then you realize, yeah, exactly, as you get older and you're really starting to think about it, you lose your wonder.
Yeah.
And you're like, hang on a daggum second. This doesn't add up. But he makes mincemeat of Proxy in like 2.5 seconds.
And so hereafter, he goes to get the
Rebels. You escape, though.
Yeah,
That's what Proxy's doing, is he's buying you time.
He goes to the Death Star, which is far and away the worst mission. You're stuck in that hangar for like 25 years, and then you got to make your way up the daggum Kyber crystal thing, and then you got to fight like 25 purge troopers. The saving grace is that you get to go all the way up the...
He's seeing all the non-helicopters right now.
And there's the black crystal that you can get for your lightsaber. That makes it kind of worthwhile, but then you got to fight like 5 shadow troopers at the same time.
PTSD much?
He is staring off into space hard.
It's intense.
What if we zoom out from his eyes and he's like in a nursing home? He's been thinking about this for 70 years. And the purge troopers.
And then you got to fight Vader.
And then if you beat Vader, you have to fight the Emperor.
Vader, you get to fight Vader again.
Yeah. And the Emperor.
And on and on and on it goes. So it's really a lose-lose.
Because you die no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, if you
choose the light side.
If you choose the light side.
You attack the Emperor, and then Rom-Coda's like, wait, never mind. And then the Emperor's like, swoop.
Yeah.
And you die. And then if you
Here's
choose
my
the
thing.
dark side...
I know that it's supposed to be cut and dry.
Yeah.
But listen, if you're in World War II, you can be a good man and kill Adolf Hitler. Like, I don't think it would turn you to the dark to kill the Emperor.
Yeah, I don't know.
It shouldn't anyway.
Ray did it.
But there you go. So that's the most important Force move is Palpatine's.
Yeah. And then...
More impressive than the Star Destroyer thing. Then if you choose dark, no, if you choose light, you stop, the Emperor kills you. If you choose dark, the Emperor defeats you.
You kill Darth Vader, and then you replace him, but you still get destroyed, so then you become Vader 2.0. You're in the respirator suit. You get the cool, sick Sith Stalker armor,
But you have the cool claws coming out of your, like your claws go through from the tip of your finger and then over and like through your hand. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's the end of that.
Yeah.
And then...
So you get extra missions if you had the Ultimate Sith Edition. So you go in place of Vader to Tatooine. You're tracking down the droids. You fight Boba Fett. You fight Ben Kenobi. You fight Ben Kenobi's Force Ghost. There's one where you go to Hoth and you fight Luke, and then you fight Dark Luke. All very cool stuff. There's also one that's a light side alternate mission where you would go to the Jedi Temple again.
So
very cool stuff.
Basically, the light side ending is how the official story goes. And if you're reading the novelization, and you're defeated. And what's really cool though is they say he was such a symbol of hope. He started this rebellion because really you're the one that starts the rebellion. You get everybody together. You bring everyone together. You're the laminin of the human body of the rebellion. And your Merrick family crest becomes the symbol for the rebellion, which is the classic rebellion symbol that has it's supposed to be some kind of a bird or something like that.
I could see that.
But it's God, I can't do it with my hands. It's the really, like this symbol. It's like a E on its back. The typical rebellion symbol.
A W with a really fat bottom.
Yeah, I don't know what the official is. It just rebellion insignia?
Yeah, I guess so.
That's the Merrick family crest.
Yeah,
that becomes the signal for the rebellion.
The PSP version will include hope you like the Jedi Temple because you're going to be there forever.
2 more times.
And then what else?
You fight a character by the name of Darth Phobos.
Darth Phobos. Darth Decius, who's a Powin. He's got a Cortosis shield, which is pretty cool.
Which is very cool because the Powins fight with shields.
Yep. And then you fight Kento Merrick and a
weird shadow of a dark side version of your dad.
No, it's a light side version. You just fight him in the Jedi Temple.
Is it while you're dark?
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, okay.
And then there's one where you'll go to Cloud City and you find Bel Iblis there instead of...
On Kashyyyk?
No, on Cloud City.
Oh,
so
okay.
you'll find Bel Iblis there instead of finding
Rom Koda
there, and you'll fight a Mandalorian leader by the name of
oh yeah,
Chopa Notimo.
Yep. And Chopa,
and he rides a Basilisk
rides a Basilisk droid. Mandalorian war droid, which is Old Republic, super dope. Should have been taken over the galaxy with that thing.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, you pointed out, great little Easter egg, is he's wearing a different colored version, but he's wearing the same helmet as the concept art for Boba Fett, which is what Obi-Wan wears when he's impersonating a character by the name of Rako Hardeen in the Clone Wars box arc.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool. They're so good at that stuff. Like, hey, Ralph McQuarrie drew this, let's use this 30 years later.
Well, and that's the cool thing about the first Force Unleashed game in particular, is that they're pulling so many different little threads that are so interesting.
Force Unleashed concept art and Force Unleashed extra stuff that they do is some of the coolest Star Wars that we've gotten.
Yeah.
Rebels got better with time, but one of the best things about Rebels is they're just pulling ideas from other stuff.
Yeah.
The Imperial troop transport from Ralph McQuarrie's concept or whatever that became a toy in the 70s that was never on screen now makes its way into Rebels as a cartoon, and then fast forward another however many 10 years or whatever from when Rebels started, the Imperial troop transport makes its on-screen appearance in The Mandalorian because Filoni's pulling and he's helping Jon Favreau with that. So it's very cool, and The Force Unleashed is kind of in that vein of using other ideas. Or here's a cool idea. What if there was a heavy ATST and it's got these crazy gunners and it's less of a scout, it's more of a tank and stuff like that. So that's really, really cool.
Force Unleashed 2 was okay.
Force Unleashed 2 was okay. The story was a cool story. The game was incredibly short, which left it having a bad taste in people's mouths.
Well,
the story was a little clunkier and much shorter.
It was short, and instead of being like well thought out fight mechanic obstacles, it was mostly just like
a ton of jumping.
Yeah, it was moving platforms type obstacles, and
right.
it was just exhausting, and there was no payout in my mind.
Right. Long story short, you wake up, you're Star Killer, somehow you're on Kamino again. Spoiler alert, you're a clone. Yeah. He's been cloning, and he's been trying to find a way to clone Force-sensitive people.
Yeah.
And, which is a really cool concept. And so Vader has been trying to create a clone. You break out of the facility, and Vader hires Boba Fett to track you down, stealing Juno Eclipse and then luring you back to him. You have to go find Ram Koda, who is being held prisoner on the Imperial-held world of Cato Neimoidia, which Neimoidians are the ones that are in charge of the Droid Federation. You know, now it's getting out of hand. Now there are two of them. That's those guys. So you're on Cato Neimoidia, and he's fighting.
Also known as the ones who say,
"Is that legal?
Is that legal?" You're fighting in basically very much Geonosis style arena on Cato Neimoidia, and Ram Koda is winning everything, but he has really nothing to live for. He's just surviving, and you save him, and he says a really cool line, "By the Force, I knew you were alive," and which is really cool. He's one of the first characters to like say stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's kind of common now, but like by the Force, like stuff like that, really cool that he says that. And then you fight a frickin' not the Balrog, that's Lord of the Rings, but it's something you fight that's really, really crazy. It's called the, hang on, I've got it right here. You fight that dadgum giant, like imagine a Rancor that has fallen into a crazy like Joker vat of things, and it's just turned really crazy.
Fallen into radioactive waste.
Yeah, it's the Hulk of Rancors.
It's freaking huge.
Dude, what is this thing?
But again, even when you're fighting that, it's just like
whoa, here's a picture of Leia
mechanics.
Organa from a side mission fighting the Dark Apprentice, and it's like Rey. Exactly like Rey. Her outfit, yellow lightsaber. Okay, anyways, I'll find it. But you're fighting... getting him out, and then basically, your concept is you have the memories of Galen, but you're not really sure, and they're very foggy, and so you're basically, all you know is you're trying to find Juno. Mm-hmm. And you end up, like I said, the missions are very short. There's like 3 or 4 missions, or 6 or something. It's very short. And you end up getting back, you arrive all the way back to Kamino, and you're trying to defeat Vader. And the big switch-up ending for that is the Gorog. That's the name of that alien. I'm going to save this picture so I can put it in the video for later. But you basically...
So he can put it
in the video. Sorry, so you can. Samuel does the pictures in the video. Props. There's the double ending again. Choose light side or dark side. Dark side is, I'm going to kill this guy. Whatever. He's hurt me. And then as you go to kill him, you do the goldfish open mouth face again. Because the cloning process has been perfected. And he cloned a dark side version of you. Who is the Star Killer that has the cool Sith hood. And then you're dead. And Star Killer...
By the way, you fight 2,700 versions of yourself.
Throughout the game, that's true. And then the light side version is you decide, you know what? He needs to be taken prisoner. We'll figure this out. And you do find Juno. Y'all kiss. And the last thing we see of Star Killer or Galen Merrick and Juno Eclipse is just going into the... You just see them go into hyperspace. You never hear anything again. Both versions of that are strange. And I want to say that when they were making this game, this is before the Disney purchase, so I imagine their thought was Force Unleashed is canon. Force Unleashed 2 is like a possibility. Because if Sith Star Killer is at the end of Force Unleashed 2, the clone, where the heck is he in the original trilogy? And if good side wins and Vader's off in prison, where's that story? And where is Star Killer, you know? But I do love it. It was really cool. In the late 80s, early 90s, Star Wars was nearly dead. Timothy Zahn brings about Heir to the Empire, and it changes the trajectory of Star Wars. Force Unleashed kind of holds a place like that in my heart because for a long time I'd get home from school and I would do my homework or whatever, and if I went to a website, I was either going to NBA.com or StarWars.com because I wanted to know what's going on in basketball and I wanted to know what's going on in Star Wars. And for a long time after Revenge of the Sith, there really wasn't much going on. And I can remember seeing the advertisement for the original Force Unleashed where it's just a character that has 2 lightsabers. It's a very generic, almost kind of looks like Luke Skywalker before they had Sam Witwer on the project. And it's like, soon the Force will be unleashed. And I remember that getting me through like tough times and being like, the Force is going to be unleashed soon. I can pass this test, stuff like that. And man, when that video game dropped, you would go to the website and it would just, the whole thing was just everything about the Force Unleashed. And it brought some of the best figures. It brought an amazing book. It was an amazing game. And so for those of you out there who are, of age, I would say, 20 or older, maybe a little bit older than that now. You're 20, 25. I'm 27. So I guess closer to our age. So maybe, let's say you're in 6th grade at that time. If you were, that would be you in 6th grade. It was 2008, huh? So if you're 25 or older, this really resonates with a lot of Star Wars fans. And if you're not that old, I encourage you, get on YouTube, watch the cutscenes. If you're a reader, read the book. I believe it's by Sean Williams.
You can find a copy of it for super cheap.
Yeah. Go to your half-price books and go get a paperback version of it for $3. It's a cool read, and it's a cool concept, and that's the beauty of Star Wars is we have canon and legends, and Starkiller will always still be real, and I will celebrate the day that they've created gaming greats Starkiller. I would easily pay $100 for Starkiller, and there's like 3 different versions, and you have like all the add-ons that you could have of the different concepts and stuff. Just some very, very cool stuff. So that's the Force Unleashed for this week. So next week we're going to tune in again, and we've got a couple of things lined up that we're thinking about. So some exciting episodes coming up. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the podcast, share this video, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and join the Chiss Ascendancy podcast Hangouts page on Facebook. And remember, may the Force be with you.
And clone or not, the only family you have here is me.
We'll see you all next week.